Shalom, welcome to my channel, the Hebrew Bible. This is Moses Gumadi, and in this video we'll look at the Hebrew Niqqud, or the vowel pointing. Now, the Masoretes did not invent the Hebrew vowels. That's a fact. They didn't invent the Hebrew vowels. What they invented was the symbols for the vowels. So this is where a lot of people get confused, and I see a lot of comments under my videos, people saying, hey, there were no vowels in the Hebrew language, in the biblical Hebrew, right? They were added later on by the Masoretes, etc. What were added were the symbols, not the vowels themselves. When you say vowels, we're talking about the sounds. The sounds exist. Without the sounds, you cannot make out how it works. They added the symbols later on. Okay, now let's look at this word shalom. So this here we have a kamats and a cholam vav, right? So that's shalom, means peace or wholeness. Now there are those who oppose the Tiberian vowel system, and they have invented for themselves new kind of pronunciations like shalom, right? There is no shalom. Hebrew is not an isolated language. Hebrew is also has a sister languages like Arabic, even Amharic, Ge'ez. In the past, other languages such as Assyrian, Ugaritic, Aramaic, all these languages are related. And we see a similar word in those languages too. It is definitely not shalom. For example, in Arabic it is salam. Okay, so there is no shalom. So this is a vowel. There is a vowel here. It is not a consonant. It is not shalom. So let's read so this is the Tiberian vocalization we are talking about. The Masoretes put in the dots and dashes. This is the Westminster Leningrad Codex, right, from where we read this Joshua 1:1, that's the verse here. YHVH mot Moshe eved Adonai, Vayomer Adonai el Yehoshua bin Nun Mesaret Moshe lemor. So, after the death of Moses, the servant of God, servant of Hashem, and Hashem said to Yehoshua, the son of Nun, the servant of Moses, saying, this is what he said. And here in the Tiberian vocalization, we see all these dots and dashes. And the yellow are the vowels, and the red ones are the cantillation. Okay, these have been added by the Tiberian Masoretes. But the vowels themselves are the sound. You could basically read this text if you know Hebrew well. For example, in Israel, they read Hebrew like this. They don't have the dots and dashes. They may teach these at the early stages, but they generally don't read. They just read the newspaper like this. And they would read, YHVH mot Moshe eved Adonai vayomer Adonai el Yehoshua bin Nun mesharet Moshe lemor. How am I reading this? Because I got used to reading some of these words elsewhere in the Bible, and so the familiar words, most of them are familiar words, and so no problem. That's what happens. PUT is put. Why is BUT not but? Because it is not, right? So how do you know? Because people remember it is not but, it is but, and that is taught and transmitted. You may not be able to write it, but it is transmitted through knowledge, through memorization, through teaching. That is how the Hebrew pronunciation and the vowels have been transmitted, even though there were no vowel pointings, like as these kind of dots and dashes. They were not there, but still they get the pronunciation. They know how to pronounce the vowels. Okay, then came a time when people started forgetting, and therefore the Tiberians, the Masoretes, thought they should document the vowels using symbols. So they started different symbolic systems, like there are 3 different symbol systems, Tiberian, Babylonian, and Israeli. And eventually this one settled. That's the one we are using. And this is the Tiberian set of Tiberian vowels, okay, which I'm going to not talk about it later on either. You can check out in my YouTube channel. You have a lesson on the vowels. Also, you can check out my course on the description below, below this video. Now, let's look at this word Yehoshua, right? So this is how it is pointed. These are the dots and dashes that are there, the Niqqud, that make us read this word as Yehoshua. However, our friends, there are some of those who reject the Tiberian pronunciation, and they pronounce this word as Yahusha. Yahusha. Well, Yeho, they're calling Yahu. Yahu. Okay. So, but still Yahu has a vowel, right? Yahusha. Instead of shu, it says sha. You see, sha is a vowel, shu is a vowel. Whether you put in those dots and dashes or not, you have the vowels there. So the question is, what is the correct pronunciation? How do you know, sitting today in 2025? How do you know how they pronounced in the past? How can you say it is Yahusha when you have no connection to the community, no tradition, nothing? And sitting suddenly, people invent and say it is Yahusha, and there are a bunch of other guys who say it is YHWH. Really? Where do you get this from? This is all nonsense, guys. Say, don't go after teachers who teach all this rubbish. So I know some of you might be there watching my videos, okay? You've been probably following my channel, and probably subscribed, and I appreciate, we often get wrong things from different sources. That's not a mistake, but that's not our problem. Well, that's not our mistake per se, but the mistake of others. But once you know what is the truth, please correct it, is what I would suggest. How do we know it is Yehoshua? Why it is not shu and not she? Because there is a vow, extra vow in Judges 2:7. Okay, and that is pronounced as Yehoshua. So there is this vow it works like a, what do you call, the Matres lectionis. Matres lectionis is the mothers of pronunciation, or imoth keria, where we use the letters Aleph, He, Vav, and Yod as helpers in pronunciation. For example, the word Paran, Leah, Yoel, David. Look at this Yod in addition to the Vav. Okay, so Aleph has a single sound, He has two sounds, Vav has two sounds, O or U, Yod has two sounds, etc. We've got other examples too. That's how it works. Baruch, same Vav is used for U, Baruch, but also Yoel, not UL, but Yoel. Okay, so these Matres lectionis will help the pronunciation somewhat. Now, why is this David, why is it not Dud or Dod? Because in the Bible itself, we has the consonantal spelling with a Yod. And so we know this is David. Okay, this is the Matres lectionis, or meaning mothers of pronunciation. The Yod is used as a vowel here. Similarly, in Elohim, although we don't have a vowel here, in the Dead Sea Scrolls we have an extra vowel showing there is Elohim. It's not Alaham or Alahaim, etc. Okay? So there is a basis, there is a scientific, traditional basis, and years of history, centuries of history and connectedness from which we derive this pronunciation. Okay, people have studied these things very intensely. Okay, this is not just guesswork. These 3 books are available free online, I think free online, from the Open Book Publisher. So you can just Google the titles and you should be able to download PDF. You can certainly download this one. I think probably the last one as well, middle one, I'm not quite sure. But you can, I think, yeah, these are all in the open, yes. So you can download these, and I'm going to quote and show some of the material from this one. Well, not a lot, just a couple of slides. Okay, don't think that I'm sharing a lot of scientific information here, but no. So this guy is a very learned professor. He's the Regus Professor of Biblical Hebrew in University of Cambridge, in Cambridge, UK. Now, this person here, Benjamin Cantor, he says, he's using Origen's Secunda. Now, Origen and Saint Jerome were the only two church fathers who could speak Hebrew, or rather who could read Hebrew. Rest of the church fathers are all dodgy guys. They don't know Hebrew, nothing. They basically picked up a Greek text, and their theology is based on Greek Septuagint. Okay, and most of the Septuagint, especially in non-Torah Septuagint, the remaining parts, not the 5 books of Moses, but the remaining parts, were all done later on. They were not certainly BCE manuscripts. They were not. So the second column of Origen's hexapla contains Greek transcriptions of Hebrew Bible. Okay, and so from these transcriptions, people have figured out and compared the Tiberian pronunciation with the hexapla transcription. This has happened in the 2nd or 3rd century. Okay, so now look at this Shema Israel table here. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha be'kol levavcha u'kol nafshecha u'kol me'odecha. So that's the first column in the Masoretic text. How is it pronounced in the modern? How is it pronounced in the Tiberian accent? In the Secunda. Secunda is this Greek transcription by Origen. How is it? Now look at this. Eloheinu, Eloheinu. Adonai. So here the Tiberians would pronounce it as Adonai, Adonai. Secunda we say Adonai, just as the modern Adonai. So modern would be Adonai. This is the Adonai. Okay. Samaritans will say Shema, meaning the name. Hashem is something like Hashem. So I'll read this Samaritan pronunciation, which is very close to the other ones as well. Shema Yisrael, Shema Eluwin, Shema Ach, Wa Ipta It Shema Eluwach, Afkal Levavak, Wafkal Nafshak, Wafkal Meudach. This is the Samaritan pronunciation. Whereas in Tiberian, you see this is Kamatz, Shema, Ain they pronounce. Whereas not in the modern. In the Secunda there is an Ain. See this? Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Va'ahavta, Va'ahavta, Va'ahavta. This is so the Kamatz is different from Patach. Va'ahavta, eth, Adonai Elohecha, bechol levavacha, u'chol nafshecha, u'chol mo'odecha. Okay. Right. So these are all very close to the Secunda. There's not much difference. Here we have vabkol, similar to Samaritan. Here vukol. Okay. So they're almost the same. Levavacha is levavach, lebabak. Okay. So they're all very close. So Secunda has captured pretty very well. It is Israel. It is not Yashara al, as some of our people say, like they say shalom yashara al. No, it is not shalom, it is not yashara al. Okay. Jerome's transcriptions also provide us with the proof that the Tiberian pronunciation is correct. So let's look at his Latin transcription. He's the Latin transcription from the book of Genesis, chapter 14. Umelchisedek melech Salem hosi lechem uain. Uhu kohen lehel helion. They say el helion, they say hel helion. Uai varechu vayomer Baruch Abram lehel helion kone samaim uaretz. Uvaruk hel helion eser magen sarach baidach. Uvaithen lo maser mekol. Okay, so how does it read now in the Tiberian? Umalchi tzedek melech shalem hotzi lechem vayain vehu kohen le'el elyon vayivarakehu YHVH, YHWH is YHVH. It's so close. It's very close. In fact, you could say that this guy made transcription error because he's using Latin, which is not that close to Hebrew, right? Vayomar, right? So he says Vayomer, Baruch, Avram le'el elyon, Kone. So the Kone Shamayim va'aretz. Kone Shamayim va'aretz. Uvaruk el elyon asher miggen. Maggen, he says. Eser. Elyon. Asher is Eser. Sha sound is not there, I think, though. So the Sha sound is not there. Asher Maggen. Sarah. Sarecha. Sarecha is there. Sarach. Beyadecha. Vayiten lo maaser mikol. Maaser mikol is maaser mekol. Mikol is mekol. It's very close, very close. So these guys have proven the fact that the Tiberians weren't taking anything new. In fact, the scholars have concluded that the Tiberian pronunciation tradition is a Second Temple era construct that vocalizes the First Temple era text. It therefore bridges both the periods, preserving archaic features through the constraints of the written text while simultaneously exhibiting the phonetic and grammatical development characteristics of its time of crystallization. So, what's the conclusion? Learn Biblical Hebrew properly. I have a course, Learn Basic Biblical Hebrew, an online course with all these learning objectives. So you learn, memorize and recognize Hebrew letters and vowels, use shva and dagesh to divide the words into syllables, and read Biblical Hebrew words, verses and portions accurately. Get familiar with the vocabulary, practice reading, and then we apply Hebrew grammar rules to understand Hebrew words, and use online texts and morphological and lexical resources to understand the text. It has 10 modules. If you'd like to know more about this course, please go to this link. This link is provided in the description below under this video. Also, this link will show up on the video itself on the top right corner. You can click there and you can see that, or in the bottom description. And when you click that link or type in your browser bit.ly-blbbh, you'll get to this page and you listen. I suggest please listen through this 3-minute video. It gives you a nice overview of the entire course before you sign up. Scroll down this page when you get there and read about all the course, read about the testimonials, and only make a decision to enroll, and you will begin to learn Biblical Hebrew properly. Thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe to my channel. Click the bell icon. Also, comment below in the video, and I will see you again with another video as soon as I can. Thank you very much.